In the pantheon of American muscle cars, where names like Mustang, Camaro, and Charger dominate the conversation, the 1963 Studebaker Avanti R3 stands as a brilliant anomaly. A car so radically advanced for its time that it still feels futuristic 6 decades later. While Detroit's Big Three were busy perfecting the formula of stuffing massive V8s into mid-size coupes, the small South Bend, Indiana automaker Studebaker took an entirely different approach with the Avanti, creating what could arguably be called America's first true supercar. The numbers alone should have made it legendary. Its supercharged 4.7L V8, dubbed the R3 in high-performance trim, produced 289 horsepower and 303 lb-ft of torque, enabling 0 to 60 miles per hour sprints in just 5.5 seconds and a top speed exceeding 140 miles per hour, performance that humbled contemporary Corvettes and made the Avanti R3 the fastest production car in America when it debuted. But what truly set the Avanti apart was its space-age design and engineering innovations that wouldn't become industry standard for years to come. The body was crafted from fiberglass, making it remarkably lightweight at just 3,150 pounds, while its wind tunnel-tested shape boasted an astonishingly low 0.29 coefficient of drag, better than many modern sports cars. The cockpit featured aircraft-inspired elements, like a full console-mounted shifter, and pioneering safety features, including a padded dashboard and rollover bar integrated into the roof structure. Thoughtful touches that showed Studebaker was thinking beyond raw speed. Perhaps most impressively, the Avanti R3 came standard with four-wheel disc brakes, a first for an American production car and technology that wouldn't appear on Corvettes until 1965 or become common on muscle cars until the 1970s. The braking system alone tells a story of Studebaker's engineering ambition. These weren't crude early discs, but sophisticated units developed with help from the aircraft industry, capable of hauling the Avanti down from triple-digit speeds with confidence-inspiring stability. Under the hood, the Paxton supercharger mounted to the 289 Ci V8 wasn't some afterthought bolt-on, but a properly engineered forced induction system that delivered linear power without the lag or reliability issues that plagued other boosted engines of the period. The supercharger's distinctive whine became part of the Avanti's character, a mechanical soundtrack that announced this was no ordinary American cruiser. Yet for all its technical brilliance, the Avanti R3 remains largely forgotten today, a victim of Studebaker's financial collapse and the car industry's collective amnesia. Only 1,200 Avantis were built in 1963, with perhaps 50 receiving the full R3 treatment, making authentic examples extraordinarily rare today. Those who have experienced the R3 describe it as a revelation. The steering is remarkably precise by 1960 standards, the chassis balanced in a way that eluded heavier contemporary GT cars, and the power delivery surprisingly modern in its linearity. In period tests, automotive journalists marveled at how the Avanti could hang with Jaguar E-types on winding roads while offering far more day-to-day usability. The tragedy of the Avanti R3 is that it arrived about 5 years too early. Had it debuted in 1968 instead of 1963, at the height of the muscle car boom rather than at the tail end of the tail-fin era, it might have rewritten automotive history. Instead, it stands as a magnificent what-if, a glimpse at an alternate future where American performance cars emphasized lightweight precision over cubic inches. Today, pristine R3 models command $150,000 plus at auction, though they remain undervalued compared to similarly capable contemporaries. For the discerning collector, the Avanti R3 represents perhaps the ultimate sleeper investment, a car whose historical significance is only now being properly appreciated, and whose driving experience remains genuinely unique even among far more expensive classic performance machines. Its story is one of innovation, ambition, and ultimately corporate tragedy, the perfect ingredients for a legend that deserves to be remembered. While Detroit was busy perfecting the muscle car formula, with long hoods and short decks, American Motors took a radical detour with the 1965 Rambler Marlin, creating what remains one of the most controversially styled and unjustly overlooked performance cars of the 1960s. At first glance, the Marlin's proportions seemed all wrong. its fastback roofline grafted onto what was essentially a mid-size Rambler Classic sedan chassis, creating a silhouette that critics derided as a bathtub turned upside down. Yet beneath this unconventional exterior beat the heart of a genuine performer, with the top-tier 327 Ci V8 pumping out 270 horsepower, 288 horsepower in the rare Typhoon Tune version, and launching the 3,300-pound car to 60 miles per hour in just 6.8 seconds. Performance that rivaled early Mustang GTs, while offering vastly more interior space. The Marlin's unique fuselage styling wasn't just an aesthetic gamble. It represented AMC's attempt to create a personal luxury muscle car years before the category became mainstream, blending sports car cues with family car practicality in a way that prefigured later icons like the 1971 Plymouth Satellite Sebring. What made the Marlin truly special was its unexpected handling prowess. While contemporary muscle cars wallowed through corners, the Marlin's shorter 112-inch wheelbase, compared to the standard Rambler's 116 inches, and carefully tuned suspension gave it surprising agility. Road testers of the era noted its willingness to change direction and neutral balance, traits unheard of in American cars at the time. The cockpit continued the theme of innovation, offering bucket seats with full consoles years before they became muscle car staples, along with an optional dial-o-rama gauge cluster that grouped all instruments in a single pod ahead of the driver. Power came from AMC's robust 327 cubic inch V8, which shared its architecture with the engine that would later power the legendary AMX, though in detuned form for the Marlin. The Marlin's tragedy wasn't its performance or innovation, but its timing and marketing. Introduced in March 1965, just 6 months before the game-changing 1966 Toronado, the fastback design that seemed radical on the Marlin immediately looked dated compared to the Toronado's sleek lines. AMC's weak dealer network and lack of racing pedigree meant the Marlin never gained traction with performance buyers, while its unconventional styling turned off traditional Rambler customers. Only 10,327 Marlins were built across 2 model years, making them rare today. Modern reappraisals have been kinder to the Marlin, with collectors praising its unique blend of practicality and performance. The fastback trunk could swallow 18.7 cubic feet of luggage, more than most modern SUVs, while the rear seat offered legitimate adult-sized accommodations. Driving a Marlin today reveals a car far more competent than its reputation suggests. The 327 Ci V8 delivers torque-rich acceleration that feels stronger than its factory rating suggests, while the lightweight unibody construction, nearly 400 pounds lighter than a comparable 65 Impala SS, gives it energetic responses. The steering is surprisingly direct for a mid-60s American car, and the optional twin-grip limited-slip differential helps put the power down effectively. What emerges is a portrait of a car that was simply too different for its time, a vehicle that tried to be both family hauler and sports coupe in an era when buyers wanted their cars to fit neatly into categories. Today, the Marlin occupies an interesting space in collector circles. Well-preserved examples typically trade in the 15,000 minus 15,000 minus 35,000 range, representing remarkable value compared to more famous muscle cars. The few surviving Typhoon performance package cars can command premiums, particularly those with a rare 4-speed manual transmission. Fewer than 200 were so equipped. For the astute collector, the Marlin offers something increasingly rare in the classic car world: an opportunity to own an unusual piece of automotive history that's still relatively affordable. More importantly, it represents a road not taken in American automotive design, proof that the muscle car formula could have developed very differently had AMC's bold experiment found an audience. In an era when every other manufacturer was chasing the same basic template, the Marlin dared to be different, and for that alone, it deserves to be remembered. While Ford's Fairlane GT grabs all the historical attention, its corporate cousin, the 1967 Mercury Comet Cyclone GT, quietly delivered equal performance with twice the exclusivity, making it one of the most overlooked muscle cars of the late 1960s. Built on the same intermediate platform as the Fairlane, but wearing Mercury's distinctive stacked headlight styling. The Cyclone GT packed Ford's legendary 390ci FE V8, producing 335 horsepower and 427 lb-ft of torque when equipped with the optional 4-barrel carburetor and dual exhaust setup. This combination could launch the 3,400-pound Mercury to 60 miles per hour in 6.5 seconds through its rugged 4-speed manual transmission, performance that nearly matched the vaunted GTO while offering superior highway manners thanks to Mercury's luxury-oriented suspension tuning. What truly set the Cyclone GT apart was its stealth factor. Where the Fairlane GT shouted its intentions with bold stripes and scoops, the Mercury wore its performance credentials subtly, with only minor badging and optional styled steel wheels hinting at its capabilities. The Cyclone GT's interior blended muscle car aggression with Mercury's traditional upscale ambience, featuring full instrumentation, including an 8,000 RPM tachometer mounted prominently in front of the driver, along with optional bucket seats and console that gave it a more performance-oriented feel than most Fairlanes. Underneath, the Cyclone benefited from Mercury's heavier-duty suspension components, including wider rear leaf springs and stiffer shocks that helped it handle better than its Ford counterpart when pushed hard. Period road tests praised its refined ride quality, a rarity among muscle cars, while still delivering the kind of straight-line thrills buyers expected. Mercury's marketing team positioned the Cyclone GT as a gentleman's muscle car, appealing to buyers who wanted GTO-level performance without the juvenile image. This strategy worked well with doctors, lawyers, and other professionals who appreciated the car's dual personality. It could play the dignified sedan during the week and transform into a quarter-mile contender on weekends with just a change of driving style. The optional 3.25 to 1 rear axle ratio made it particularly adept at highway cruising, where the big 390 could loaf along at low RPM while still delivering instant passing power. Despite its merits, the Cyclone GT suffered from Mercury's second-tier status in Ford's corporate hierarchy. With only 6,800 units produced compared to nearly 30,000 Fairlane GTs, the Mercury never gained the same recognition. Today, survivors are exceptionally rare, with most having been modified into drag racers or lost to rust. Pristine examples now command 50, 0, 0, 0, minus 50, 0, 0, 0, minus 75, 0, 0, 0 at auction, a fraction of the price for comparable Fairlanes or Chevelles, making them one of the best values in the collector market. Driving a well-preserved Cyclone GT today reveals why these cars deserve more respect. The 390 FE V8 delivers torque everywhere in the rev range, pulling strongly from idle to its 5,500 RPM power peak without the flat spots common to many muscle car engines. The steering is surprisingly communicative for a car of its era, and the brakes, while not up to modern standards, are more than adequate for spirited driving. What emerges is a portrait of a perfectly balanced muscle car, powerful enough to thrill, but refined enough to live with daily. The Cyclone GT's legacy lies in proving that muscle cars didn't need to be crude to be effective. Its blend of performance and civility foreshadowed the modern high-performance sedan, offering a template that automakers would return to decades later. For collectors today, it represents an opportunity to own a genuinely rare piece of muscle car history that still flies under the radar. The perfect choice for those who appreciate performance, but don't need the world to know about it. Before the Charger and Coronet became household names, Dodge fielded its first serious muscle car contender in the unlikely form of the 1964 Dodge Polara 500, a full-size sleeper that combined family car practicality with shocking straight-line performance. While most manufacturers were downsizing their performance offerings to intermediate platforms, Dodge took the opposite approach by dropping its new 426ci Wedge V8 into the full-size Polara body, creating what remains one of the most unexpectedly potent muscle cars of the early 1960s. In Maximum Max Wedge tune with dual 4-barrel carburetors and radical 11.5:1 compression, the 426 pumped out a factory-rated 415 horsepower, though dyno tests suggested actual output approached 450 horsepower. enough to propel the 3,800-pound Polara 500 from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 5.9 seconds, performance that humbled contemporary Corvettes and made it one of the quickest American cars you could buy in 1964. What made the Polara 500 truly special was its wolf fin sheep's clothing character, where the lighter but less powerful intermediates of the era announced their intentions with flashy trim and scoops. The Polara 500 looked like any other family sedan save for subtle 500 badging and optional 10-inch wide rear wheels, barely contained under rolled fender lips. The Polara 500's interior reflected its dual personality, offering full-size car comfort with bucket seats and a console available as options. Dodge's clever, tough steering wheel provided both a sporty look and improved grip during hard driving, while the dashboard mounted 8,000 RPM tachometer, highly unusual for a full-size car in 1964, hinted at the car's serious performance intentions. Underneath, Dodge engineers had substantially reinforced the Polara's torsion bar front suspension to handle the 420 SAX's massive torque output, while the live rear axle received heavy-duty leaf springs and staggered shock absorbers to manage wheel hop during hard launches. The result was a car that could embarrass purpose-built sports cars at stoplight drags while still carrying 6 adults in comfort, a combination no other manufacturer could match at the time. On the street, the Polara 500 size worked to its advantage. While smaller muscle cars of the era tended to be twitchy at high speeds, the big Dodge remained rock steady at 120+ mph, its long wheelbase soaking up bumps that would send intermediates skipping across lanes. The 426 wedge engine's broad torque curve meant drivers rarely needed to rev past 5,000 RPM for strong acceleration, though those who did were rewarded with a snarling exhaust note completely unexpected from such a conservative-looking package. This duality made the Polara 500 particularly popular with law enforcement agencies, many of whom ordered them as unmarked pursuit vehicles, a fact that only added to the car's legend among street racers of the period. Despite its capabilities, the Polara 500 remains largely forgotten today for several reasons. Dodge built only 2,800 examples with the 426 wedge engine before shifting focus to the new intermediate Coronet platform, making genuine survivors exceptionally rare. The car's full-size dimensions and conservative styling also worked against it in an era when muscle cars were becoming increasingly compact and aggressive-looking. Most tragically, nearly all the factory max wedge cars were raced into oblivion, their engines swapped into lighter darts and coronets as the original bodies rusted away. Today, a documented 426-powered Polara 500 is among the holy grails of Mopar collecting, with pristine examples commanding $200,000 plus at auction when they rarely appear. Modern reappraisals of the Polara 500 reveal a car that was arguably a decade ahead of its time. Its formula of combining full-size comfort with supercar-level performance wouldn't become mainstream until the 1970s with cars like the Pontiac Grand Prix SJ and Buick GS 455. The few surviving examples that have been preserved rather than modified into drag cars showcase how remarkably well-balanced these big Dodges were, with handling that shames many contemporary sports cars despite their size. For collectors, the Polara 500 represents both a significant milestone in Dodge's performance heritage and a fascinating what-if scenario. Had Dodge continued developing the full-size performance concept rather than shifting to intermediates, the entire muscle car era might have unfolded very differently. Driving a well-preserved Polara 500 today is a revelation. The 426 wedge's low-end torque makes modern traffic effortless, while the light steering, by 1960 standards, and excellent visibility make it far more pleasant to pilot in crowded conditions than most muscle cars. At speed, the car displays an unexpected grace, its substantial weight giving it stability that smaller contemporaries lack. What emerges is the portrait of a brilliantly executed performance car that simply arrived at the wrong moment in automotive history. Too big to be trendy during the muscle car boom, too powerful to be forgotten entirely. For those who appreciate underdog stories and engineering excellence, the Polara 500 stands as one of the most intriguing and overlooked performance cars America ever produced. In the final glorious year of the muscle car era, While Detroit's giants were engaged in a horsepower war, Little American Motors dropped the most outrageous factory hot rod of them all, the 1969 AMC Hearst SC/Rambler, a car so brutally focused on performance that it made contemporary GTOs and Roadrunners seem refined by comparison. Created through an unlikely collaboration between AMC and famed performance tuners Hearst Performance, the SC/Rambler, short for Scrambler, took AMC's humble compact Rambler and transformed it into a drag strip terror with minimal pretense of civility. At its heart sat AMC's 390 Ci V8, the same engine that powered the company's more prestigious Javelin and AMX models, but here tuned at 315 horsepower and made it exclusively to a closed ratio 4-speed manual feeding a 4.44 to 1 rear axle that turned every stoplight encounter into an explosive event. The factory claimed 0 to 60 miles per hour in 5.5 seconds, but magazine testers consistently achieved low 5-second runs, making it one of the quickest production cars of 1969, despite its bargain basement $2,998 price tag. What set the SC/Rambler apart wasn't just its performance, but its unapologetic, in-your-face styling that looked like no other muscle car before or since. The body wore what became known as the Air Force color scheme, a base of white with bold red and blue stripes that ran the length of the car in asymmetrical patterns, including one stripe that abruptly ended at the rear window, as if the designers had run out of paint. The hood featured gaping cold air intake scoops that fed the engine directly, while the trunk lid carried a cartoonish SC/Rambler decal in circus-style lettering. Inside, AMC stripped out nearly every luxury item to save weight, leaving just basic vinyl buckets, a Hertz shifter, and a tachometer bolted to the steering column, an arrangement that looked more like a race car than a street-legal vehicle. This was muscle car minimalism taken to its logical extreme, a car that made no apologies for its single-minded focus on acceleration. On the road, the SC/Rambler delivered an experience that bordered on sensory assault. The ultra-short 3.54:1 first gear meant drivers needed to shift almost immediately after launch, while the 4.44 rear end had the engine screaming at 3,500 RPM at just 60 miles per hour in fourth gear, making highway trips an exercise in endurance. The suspension, lowered and stiffened by Hearst, transmitted every pavement imperfection directly to the cabin, while the unassisted steering required serious muscle at parking speeds. Yet all these compromises vanished the moment the throttle was mashed. The 390's torque-rich power band and the car's light 3,200-pound curb weight combined to create acceleration that felt more like a tuned drag car than a showroom stock vehicle. Contemporary testers reported quarter-mile times in the high 13-second range at 105 miles per hour, performance that rivaled far more expensive Hemi cars while costing less than half as much. Modern reappraisals of the SC/Rambler reveal a vehicle that was both ahead of its time and completely of its time. Its stripped-down, weight-obsessed approach anticipated the factory lightweights that would become popular in the 21st century, while its outrageous graphics presaged the rap culture of modern tuner cars. Yet it also represented the final desperate gasp of the muscle car era, a period when automakers were willing to try anything to stand out in an increasingly crowded market. Driving an SC/Rambler today is like stepping into a time machine to 1969, when gasoline was cheap, emissions controls were non-existent, and the only thing that mattered was how fast you could get to the next stoplight. For collectors, the SC/Rambler offers something increasingly rare in the classic car world: unfiltered, uncompromised performance, with a backstory as colorful as its paint scheme. It stands as proof that even in the golden age of muscle cars, when every manufacturer was fielding performance models, there was still room for surprises, and that sometimes the most memorable cars come from the unlikeliest of sources. While the muscle car world obsessed over quarter-mile times in 1966, Oldsmobile quietly unleashed an engineering masterpiece that would influence automotive design for decades: the front-wheel drive Toronado, a car that combined muscle car power with spaceship styling in a package unlike anything else on American roads. Beneath its dramatic fastback roofline and aircraft-inspired cockpit lay Oldsmobile's new 425 Ci rocket V8, producing 385 horsepower and 475 lb-ft of torque, numbers that put it squarely in muscle car territory despite its luxury credentials. What made the Toronado revolutionary wasn't just its power, but how that power reached the pavement. Through America's first modern front-wheel drive system since the 1930s Cord, using an ingenious chain-driven secondary shaft to transfer the massive V8's torque to the front wheels without torque steer. The result was a 2.5-ton Grand Tourer that could sprint to 60 miles per hour in 7.5 seconds while carrying 4 adults in air-conditioned comfort. Performance that rivaled contemporary GTOs while offering far more refinement. The Toronado's styling was as groundbreaking as its engineering. Designer David North's wind tunnel-hone fastback looked like nothing else on the road, with a hidden windshield wiper system, slotted front fenders that reduced aerodynamic lift, and a full-width taillight panel that became an Oldsmobile trademark. The interior resembled an aircraft cockpit, with a pod-style instrument cluster housing a 160 miles per hour speedometer and full array of warning lights, all positioned within easy reach of the slim Formula One-style steering wheel. Despite its size, the Toronado handled surprisingly well thanks to its near-perfect 53/47 weight distribution, a remarkable achievement for a front-drive car with a big block V8, and its torsion bar front suspension provided ride quality that shamed contemporary sports cars. Oldsmobile marketed the Toronado as a personal luxury car, but its performance credentials were undeniable. In 1966, car and driver recorded a 14.8-second quarter-mile at 98 miles per hour, just a few tenths slower than a 389-powered GTO, while achieving 18 miles per gallon on the highway, remarkable efficiency for a 425 cubic inch engine. The Toronado's front-drive layout gave it phenomenal traction in poor weather, making it a favorite among doctors and executives who needed year-round performance. At high speeds, the car was supremely stable, its long 120-inch wheelbase and low drag coefficient allowing effortless cruising well beyond legal limits. Yet for all its innovation, the Toronado never gained the recognition it deserved as a performance car. Most muscle car enthusiasts dismissed it as the wrong kind of different, while luxury buyers were put off by its radical styling. Oldsmobile built just 40,963 examples in 1966, making it far rarer than most contemporary muscle cars. Today, pristine first-generation Toronados trade in the 30,000 minus 30,000 minus 60,000 range, a bargain compared to equivalent-era GTOs or Chevelles, despite being far more technologically significant. Modern reappraisals of the Toronado reveal a car ahead of its time in countless ways. Its front-drive layout, considered bizarre in 1966, became the industry standard by the 1990s. The hidden wipers and aerodynamic detailing anticipated the flush glass designs of the 1980s. Most importantly, it proved that big power and front-wheel drive could coexist, a lesson automakers would rediscover with cars like the Cadillac Alante and Mazda MX, 6-turbo decades later. Driving a '66 Toronado today is a revelation. The 425 V8 delivers wave after wave of creamy torque, pulling from idle to its 4,800 RPM power peak without vibration. The steering is surprisingly direct for such a large car, and the lack of drivetrain lash makes acceleration feel instantaneous. What emerges is the portrait of Detroit's most ambitious engineering exercise of the 1960s. A car that could have rewritten the rulebook had more buyers understood its brilliance. For collectors, the Toronado represents a rare opportunity to own a piece of automotive history that's still relatively affordable. More than just a curious footnote, it stands as proof that even in the muscle car era's heyday, some engineers were thinking far beyond horsepower figures. They were reinventing what an American car could be. While Pontiac's GTO grabbed headlines and showroom traffic, the company's full-size 1968 Catalina 2+2 quietly delivered equal performance with greater sophistication, creating what may be the most overlooked muscle car of the late 1960s. Built on Pontiac's stretched 121-inch wheelbase platform, the Catalina 2+2 offered something radical in the muscle car world: big block power with luxury car refinement. The standard engine was Pontiac's 400 CI V8, producing 340 horsepower. But the real magic came with the optional 428 CI HO that churned out 390 horsepower and 490 lb-ft of torque. Numbers that could propel this 3,900-pound land yacht to 60 miles per hour in 6.3 seconds through its optional turbo, high-dramatic 400 transmission. What set the 2+2 apart wasn't just its power, but how it delivered it. With a velvet glove punch that combined searing acceleration with pillow-soft ride quality, making it one of the few muscle cars that truly worked as a cross-country tourer. The Catalina 2+2's styling walked a perfect line between muscle car aggression and executive presence. While it shared the standard Catalina's basic body shell, subtle upgrades gave it a distinctive personality: a hood-mounted tachometer, dual exhaust outlets integrated into the rear bumper, and optional hidden headlights that gave the front end a sleek, European look. The interior offered full-size car comfort with bucket seats and a console available, an unusual combination in 1968, along with wood-grain accents and enough sound deadening to make highway cruising whisper quiet. Underneath, Pontiac's engineers had substantially upgraded the chassis with stiffer springs, thicker sway bars, and heavy-duty shocks to handle the 428's massive torque output without sacrificing ride quality. On the road, the Catalina 2+2 delivered an experience unlike any other muscle car of its era. The 428 HO's torque curve was so flat that the car could accelerate from 30 to 70 miles per hour in high gear without downshifting, a trick few sports cars could match. The power steering was perfectly weighted, making parking lot maneuvers effortless, while still providing decent feedback at speed. Most remarkably, the Catalina could cruise at 100+ mph with the stability of a luxury sedan, its long wheelbase soaking up bumps that would send smaller muscle cars skipping across lanes. Contemporary road testers marveled at how the 2+2 combined Corvette rivaling straight-line performance with Cadillac-level refinement, a combination no intermediate muscle car could match. Despite its capabilities, the Catalina 2+2 remains largely forgotten today for several reasons. Pontiac built just 2,362 examples with a 428 HO engine, making genuine survivors exceptionally rare. The car's full-size dimensions and understated styling also worked against it in an era when muscle cars were becoming increasingly compact and flashy. Most tragically, many 2+2s were simply used up as daily drivers, their robust drivetrains often transplanted into more desirable GTOs as the original bodies succumbed to rust. Today, a documented 428 HO-powered 2+2 is among the holy grails of Pontiac collecting, with pristine examples commanding $80,000 plus at auction when they rarely appear. Modern reappraisals of the Catalina 2+2 reveal a car that was ahead of its time in concept. Its formula of combining full-size comfort with supercar-level performance wouldn't become mainstream until the 1990s with cars like the BMW M5 and Mercedes-Benz E55 AMG. The few surviving examples that have been preserved rather than modified showcase how remarkably well-balanced these big Pontiacs were, with handling that shames many contemporary sports cars despite their size. For collectors, the Catalina 2+2 represents both a significant milestone in Pontiac's performance heritage and a fascinating alternative history, proof that the muscle car formula could have developed with greater emphasis on refinement and luxury. Driving a well-preserved Catalina 2+2 today is a revelation. The 428 HO's low-end torque makes modern traffic effortless, while the light steering and excellent visibility make it far more pleasant to pilot in crowded conditions than most muscle cars. At speed, the car displays an unexpected grace, its substantial weight giving it stability that smaller contemporaries lack. What emerges is the portrait of a brilliantly executed performance luxury car that arrived at exactly the wrong moment, just as the muscle car world was shifting towards smaller, lighter platforms. For those who appreciate underdog stories and engineering excellence, the Catalina 2+2 stands as one of the most intriguing and overlooked performance cars America ever produced. 2 years before the GTO invented the muscle car genre, Pontiac quietly built what might be considered the first true factory drag racer, the 1962 Tempest Super Duty, a car so radical that it was nearly banned from competition before it even hit the streets. Conceived as Pontiac's secret weapon for NHRA and NASCAR homologation, the Super Duty package transformed the compact Tempest from an economy car into a giant-killing drag strip terror. At its heart sat Pontiac's legendary 421ci Super Duty V8, a race-bred power plant featuring aluminum heads, forged internals, and a choice of dual quad carburetors or fuel injection, producing up to 405 horsepower in street trim, obscene numbers for 1962, when even Corvettes made barely 300 horsepower. What made the Tempest Super Duty truly revolutionary was its innovative rope-drive transaxle and independent rear suspension, a setup that eliminated power-robbing drivetrain angles and helped the 3,200-pound car achieve 0 to 60 miles per hour in 5.8 seconds, performance that humbled contemporary Ferraris and Jaguars. The Super Duty's engineering read like a motorsports cheat sheet. The engine used free-breathing cylinder heads with oversized valves copied from Pontiac's NASCAR program, while the lightweight aluminum front body panels saved crucial pounds over the front wheels. The factory offered a drag pack option that included stiffer springs, a limited slip differential, and even pre-drilled holes for roll bars, making no pretense about the car's intended purpose. Perhaps most remarkably, Pontiac engineers developed a factory-approved cylinder head swapping procedure that let owners convert between high-revving NASCAR spec heads and torque monster drag racing heads in under 2 hours. This wasn't just a performance car. It was a turnkey race program disguised as a family sedan. On the strip, the Tempest Super Duty was nearly unbeatable in its class. Properly tuned examples could run low 13-second quarter miles at 110+ mph, performance that matched fuel-injected Corvettes while carrying 4 passengers. The car's balanced weight distribution and independent rear suspension gave it freakish traction off the line, while the high-winding 421 could rev to 6,500 RPM without breaking a sweat. Road testers of the era were stunned by the Super Duty's capabilities. One famously reported that the car would out-accelerate anything this side of a fuel dragster, while still having room for groceries in the trunk. Despite its brilliance, the Tempest Super Duty became a victim of corporate politics and bad timing. GM officially banned factory racing participation in early 1963, forcing Pontiac to cancel the program after building just approximately 200 examples, only about 50 with the hottest configurations. Many were bought back by the factory and crushed to prevent privateers from continuing to dominate NHRA events, while others were raced into oblivion. Today, authentic Super Duty Tempests are among the rarest and most valuable Pontiacs in existence, with fully documented examples commanding $500,000 plus at auction when they rarely surface. Modern analysis reveals the Super Duty as one of Detroit's most important performance cars, a vehicle that anticipated the muscle car era by 2 full years. Its combination of race-bred engineering and street-legal practicality created the template Pontiac would later perfect with the GTO. The 421 engine's architecture directly influenced every subsequent Pontiac V8, while its transaxle layout previewed the C5 Corvette's rear-mounted transmission by 35 years. Driving a surviving Super Duty today is like stepping into an alternate history where Pontiac beat everyone to the punch, a world where the muscle car era might have started in 1962 rather than 1964. For collectors, the Tempest Super Duty represents the ultimate prize, a car that blends historical significance, extreme rarity, and jaw-dropping performance in one package. More than just another fast Pontiac, it stands as a monument to a brief, glorious period when Detroit's engineers were allowed to build race cars for the street with no compromises, a philosophy that would disappear almost as quickly as the Super Duty itself. While most muscle cars chased horsepower numbers in 1969, Ford took a radically different approach with the Talladega, creating what might be the most sophisticated NASCAR homologation special ever built, a car where aerodynamics mattered as much as raw power. named after Alabama's superspeedway, where Ford had been humiliated by Chrysler's winged warriors. The Talladega started life as a Fairlane Cobra before Ford's racing engineers completely reworked its body to cheat the wind. The front end was extended 5 inches and lowered, with a flush-mounted grille and smooth valance panel that reduced drag. The rear window was angled sharply and the roofline extended to meet a special flush trunk lid, creating airflow characteristics superior to anything else in NASCAR. Underneath this slippery shape sat Ford's 428 Ci Cobra Jet V8, producing 335 horsepower. Grossly underrated, real output approached 400 horsepower, enough to push the Talladega to 60 miles per hour in 5.8 seconds, while remaining stable at 140+ mph, crucial for Daytona and Talladega's high banks. What made the Talladega revolutionary wasn't just its speed, but how it achieved it. While competitors added wings and scoops, Ford's approach was subtraction. Every millimeter of the body was smoothed, tucked or reshaped to minimize turbulence. The door handles were recessed, the wheel openings carefully contoured, and even the windshield wipers were parked vertically to reduce drag. The interior was pure business. Bench seats with minimal padding to save weight, a 180 miles per hour speedometer, when most cars topped out at 120, and optional racing harness anchors built into the floor. Ford built exactly 754 Talladegas to meet NASCAR's homologation requirements, with most being sold through select dealers to Ford's racing allies. On the track, the results were immediate. Talladegas dominated the 1969 NASCAR season, winning 26 races including the Daytona 500, and finally giving Ford an answer to Chrysler's Aero cars. On the street, the Talladega was the ultimate sleeper. Without its distinctive sports roof badging and Wimbledon white paint, chosen to mimic the race cars, it looked nearly identical to a standard Fairlane. But the driving experience revealed its special nature immediately. The 428 CJ pulled strongly from idle to 6,000 RPM. The suspension was noticeably stiffer than a stock Fairlane's, and the car remained rock-steady at speeds that would have other muscle cars floating nervously. Contemporary testers noted how the Talladega felt glued to the road at triple-digit speeds, with none of the front-end lift that plagued competitors. The unassisted steering provided remarkable feedback, and the 4-piston front disc brakes, a rarity in 1969, could haul the car down from speed repeatedly without fade. The Talladega's legacy is one of engineering over brute force. While other manufacturers chased bigger engines, Ford proved that clever aerodynamics could trump horsepower, a lesson that would define racing for the next 50 years. Today, surviving Talladegas are among the most coveted Ford muscle cars, with Concours-quality examples fetching $250,000 plus. They stand as a reminder that even at the height of the horsepower wars, some engineers were thinking far beyond cubic inches. They were racing the wind itself.